This video is about mostly vintage Sheaffer fountain pens that are not on the expensive side of pricing, but are generally the more commonly found pens. One of my favorite pens from the 60s and 70s is the Sheaffer No-Nonsense pen. They're great pens with great nibs, easy to use, easy to learn calligraphy with, and I have several. They stopped making the No-Nonsense pen, and they kind of changed the design into what is now called the Viewpoint pen. And they're similar, and they're good. They're not quite a no-nonsense, but they are good pens. This one, and that one right there, the red one, these are no-nonsense pens from around 1970. And they, in the calligraphy sets and the stationery sets, they came with fine, medium, and broad nibs, and usually several ink cartridges. As you can see here, this has the nibs, and the cartridges would be underneath this top packaging and a little package inside. And then we have, this is a Viewpoint, and this is from, I usually label what I bought. This is from 2006. So by 2006, they had changed to this packaging, and they were calling them the Viewpoints. They're very, very similar to the old No-Nonsense. Some of the grips are different, and what that did was change, I'm trying to remember, some of the nibs. Well, they should all be interchangeable, but depending on the grip that you have on the Viewpoint pen, the nibs, if you use the vintage nibs in the newer pens, you may get slight leaking. I'm pretty sure that's what I found. For the most part, they should be more or less interchangeable. Now, this is a Sheaffer fountain pen from, again, probably the late 60s, early 70s. I have several of these. These are the pens that I used in high school. You could walk into any drugstore, any store at all, and pay, I think, $1.98 and have a wonderful fountain pen. I wrote much of my homework with a pen like this. And what we're going to talk about right now are refills and an ink converter, and whether or not it fits all these different pens. Now, Sheaffer refills look like this. The vintage refills and the new refills all interchange easily with all of the pens here, including this one. This pen, which is earlier than the No-Nonsense or was marketed differently, this will not accept an ink converter. The ink converters look like this, and they're just slightly too wide to fit in the barrel and have the nib go down into them. So the ink converters that are available today are really made for the No-Nonsense and the Viewpoint type pens. Now this package here, this is essentially a Viewpoint, but it's called Sheaffer Classic Calligraphy on the package. And see, this is what I meant about now they've gotten into some really rubberized grips, and these nibs, what I haven't done is try to use one of these in a No-Nonsense pen. I don't think that would work because they're longer, the nibs are longer. But I haven't tried that yet. But this is, if you look at the pen itself, it doesn't look longer. So maybe they are interchangeable. I'll have to open this one up and find out. This is a Viewpoint, and they look the same length. They do look the same length, but the nibs, maybe it's just an illusion with them looking different. This is a vintage no-nonsense nib. Let's see, it is shorter. They're shorter and thinner. So I don't think no-nonsense nibs are interchangeable with the newest. This one is from 2008. So that's the newest I have. This is 2016. So even that is, you know, fairly old, almost vintage. But it was the last time I bought a new set, was 2008. So these are the ink converters, and they're very easy to use with any of these pens. I'm going to put this one aside because you can't use them with the narrower, I think they used to call these slim fountain pens. You can't use them with that, so we'll put that aside. But you can use them, excuse me, with the no-nonsense or the Viewpoint pens. I'm going to pick out a bottle of ink and show you how easy it is to fill a pen with one. This is one of my favorite inks. It's Noodler's Legal Lapis. And my favorite ink from the past is Shaffer's blue-black ink. And you can still buy cartridges of blue-black. I believe you can also buy bottles of blue-black. And it's not quite as permanent for artwork or drawing or calligraphy as the Legal Lapis is by Noodler's. I have about 10 different colors of Noodler's inks, and they're wonderful inks. But you can use any ink that's labeled to be for a fountain pen. For example, here are some different inks. This is FW acrylic ink. I would never put this in a fountain pen. Because it's acrylic, it is going to just simply dry up enough on the nib or within the nib to, it dries to an acrylic film. So you're coating your nib with acrylic and it's just not going to flow right. So what I've done is I have taken that green Viewpoint apart. Here's the just about empty cartridge over here. And you simply put the ink converter in the same place the cartridge was. They are long. They have a hole at the end. And you just, like I said, place the nib on the end of it. And then what we're going to do, if you can see through that, right now, when this black part is extended, this plunger is all the way up here. So what we have to do first is just screw this down to get the plunger to the bottom. And then when I put this in the ink bottle, we want the nib, we want at least go up to the black collar with it sitting in ink. And then you will turn the end of the plunger in the opposite direction, pull it up this way, and that will fill the cartridge, the reservoir in here. It's very simple. And as I said, turning it to the left brings the plunger down. So now the plunger is all the way down here, and all we have to do is just place this in the bottle of ink. You can hold it like this. And you simply turn the plunger, in the end of the plunger in the other direction. And you can obviously see that this is full. And then what I usually do is, this ink is actually pigmented. I think all of their Noodler's inks are, but Legal Lapis is very permanent, and it is, I think, a little pigmented. So what I do is I will now take this nib and just run it under a little bit of water. And what that does is keep the excess ink at the tip, just a little bit more fluid. It's a beautiful color, it's a beautiful ink, and when you're looking for a converter for either the No-Nonsense or the Viewpoint pens, this is why it won't fit in the other barrel, the slim barrel. The length of this and the thickness of this just prevents it from fitting all the way in the barrel. But on this pen, it really fits in there similar to a cartridge. And then of course you have to unscrew it if you need to move the plunger up. But that's not really that inconvenient. And it's, like I said, a beautiful ink. And these are wonderful pens to learn calligraphy with. I'll write the word apple. The slant of the nib just makes it easy to write with. So the vintage No-Nonsense are usually anywhere from $10 to $20 a piece. Some of the sets people want $30 for. If you get the stationary sets that are still complete. One thing to watch out for if you buy vintage sets is many times the ink has dried up in the cartridge. So you may see 10 or 15 cartridges in a package and none of them have any fluid ink in them. So that's something to watch out for. And I know that the classics, even though they're fancier and they look a little bit different, are as good as the Viewpoints and the earlier Shaffers. The No-Nonsense has a better weight to it. If you're particular about your pens, the Viewpoints are good to use every day. So are the No-Nonsense, but the No-Nonsenses just have a little bit more weight to them and a little bit maybe more balance. But they're all very similar. And that's using an ink converter in a Sheaffer No-Nonsense Viewpoint or classic calligraphy pen.